All in favor? We're out. So we are is Todd out there? Or who's that? Oh, Sandra's back. Okay, Mark or Matt is here, so we can go to item 10.4 and 5. And I think it's, yeah. $10.3. So we'll get one out of the road. Okay, let's go to 10.3.
So since the village utility dissolved, we've been sitting with a vacant building there on Main Street, and the Community Action Team Society has come forward with a proposal wanting to have approval or consideration given to their use of the building for, I think, an activity or a use that would benefit the hamlet. Certainly would recommend that we go ahead and authorize entering into an arrangement that would allow them to use the structure as they see fit here for this particular initiative. I would expect that it's probably going to be an experiment, and we'll wait and see what kind of success it generates if in fact council is prepared to proceed. Hopefully it could become something of a longer term nature, but would like to certainly at least receive approval to go ahead on a short term basis here.
Who has the question? Kelly?
So Community Action Team Society, what do they do? What do they stand for? What's their mission in life? That's my question.
I'm going to defer.
They've been a group that's been working in Tilly for a number of years. They take care of the planters and beautify the town, and they help out with Canada Day and other activities in town. They're the only society in town that can get grants for anything they need to get done. And they're a pretty ambitious group in Tilly.
Anne-Marie?
Do they have money to pay utilities? Rent?
Not sure what they got in the coffers. But we could find that out next week at the Tilly Advisory meeting on Monday.
Wayne?
Well, if they can pay the utilities and then actually keep the building up, even living in it, the building is going to be in better shape. I think it'd be to our advantage to go this route. Right now, nothing's happening in there, so.
Yeah, there hasn't been any use made of the building for 5 years. Yeah.
And we've been paying the utilities to keep it functionable. Ellen?
It's a great idea, you know, if they can pay the utilities. I mean, if it's never good when a building is empty. So, and if they're go-getters, I'd say go for it.
Clarence?
I'm going to make a motion to proceed with working out terms for an agreement with CATS, the occupancy of the village office, and just see what they come up with, and if you don't feel comfortable, come back to us.
Perfect. Anything else? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 10.4 and 5. Sort of. Taxation.
So the taxation policy is here for discussion. The regional working group will be dealing with it starting next meeting. I've asked the directors and Matt to put some thought to how they think the policy should look, because everybody has different ideas, and I think it'll give the group some more things to discuss. But I wanted council to come with your ideas on what that taxation policy would look like. And then when you're done, I will tell you my idea on it. How's that?
Do you want to reverse the direction of that discussion? So, want to talk about, we'll talk about taxation first then. Any ideas? So Kevin, we can, the different options for taxation, there's a lot of, between or among the municipalities, they can have different rates, right? Is that what we're talking about? That sort of, all those things. So maybe, options are different rates for different services sort of concept. Other suggestions? Brian?
Well, I'm going to dive in that, of course, the commercial should all pay the same, except depending on what their service level is, and that should be reflected in the services that are provided to them within each different jurisdiction. Same with residential.
All taxes, basically, based on service rates.
Yeah, it should be standardized. And then, based on the services that they're receiving for within the area that they're getting, that they reside, that should be reflective of what their ultimate taxes is. I know that's pretty vague, maybe pretty basic, but to me, that's the only way you're going to sell it.
So different rates
depending on what your services you're receiving.
For the service levels. Yeah. In all of the taxation categories. Lionel.
Yeah, I agree with Brian on that. Commercial has always been a controversy between the city and the county on different rates, but there is a service level difference also, huge difference. And so that does have to be taken into consideration.
Usually the water and sewer, for example.
Water, sewer, pavement. I mean, our commercial developments are not paved in most cases. That's a big one in itself. We're talking about doing them, but they're not done yet. So that's I'm with Brian on that one.
And so similarly with residential then, same type of, Wayne.
The big nut here is linear, and the county right now we have 1,800 kilometers of road that we service, and that actually is in there and service a lot of that linear and a lot of our oil field, and a percentage of that should remain for the purpose of keeping up roads, because the oil patch and that structure uses those roads, and it costs quite a bit of money, like Mark will tell you, to maintain that stuff at the quality, at the standards we have right now. And that would be something I would look forward to, is make sure that standard does not drop.
Kelly?
And I would take it one step further and say that standard should be improved, that we should be looking towards paving more roads, improving standard over the years, over time, yep. We have way less paved roads in this province than we do in eastern provinces. So that they have population, granted.
Okay, Other ideas? Clarence?
Well, I haven't given it a lot of thought except in broad terms. First of all, if we're all going to have the same residential, we may as well walk away from the table unless we go down to the county's level. I don't think that's possible from day one. My thoughts would be that we would go in with the same taxation rates, and any dollars saved from duplication goes to the highest rates to bring them down. If we can, we haven't really got into it. I think Matt's been doing a lot of work on it with Shelley, but until we see some kind of a plan, it's pretty hard to say where some of this stuff is going to come out at. So to me, it's always, I've thought that we should go into it with, just like I said, with the same rates we have today. And when we actually see where we can come down to, we start at what's been the highest and start bringing them down. But it's going to be a no-go for us if we take our residential rate to somewhere in the middle between 7.9 and 4.4 where we're at today. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible from day one. I think you have to get some of those efficiencies in there first. And in order to do that, I think you have to protect your residents. Because quite frankly, county residents will not get the same benefits dollar-wise as some of the others. And if you want to have them agree to some of this stuff, you have to give them some safeguards that our rates aren't going up. So where that is, I don't know. We haven't done the homework on it. But that's kind of been my philosophy, that we go in with the same rates and see where we can come at over a period of time.
Safe, stable approach. Wayne?
How do we guarantee, how long can you guarantee if that agreement was agreed to, how long would that be in effect? Because the new council would come together and theoretically they could call a meeting and change it the first meeting. So how, is there ways of guaranteeing that?
Yeah, so the order can basically say whatever the minister agrees to, the municipalities agree to, and they can put it in the order. I don't think the minister will ever put a rate amount down as a limit, because that affects future councils, but he or she can put, if you agree to a separation difference between rates, I think they can put those factors in, if that's something that's important. I don't know how far they would go out. They might only go out 5 or 10 years, or, I don't know how far. We'd have to find out from them exactly, but you can put those type of conditions in. You want to go first, Matt, or do you want me to go? You ever?
All right, so I appreciate your comments. I've taken notes because I don't want to give anything to the working group that isn't going to fly. It gets really complicated to start unpacking who should pay for what. And if the one of the big assumptions or goals we've got going into this regionalization or potential amalgamation is, I can't remember what the slogan was, one community, one, so if we're looking at really treating everybody as a community, I think that's where we get to the same rates for residential, same rates for commercial. But I think that whatever the political will is, whatever that overarching philosophy is, that's really what's going to drive where we end up on tax policy. I want you to think back to budget presentations and my colored buckets. If you remember the buckets, we've got different kinds of goods and services that we provide in the county. Public goods, So that's like our roads, our parks. It's hard to exclude anybody from using them. It's hard to track individuals' use. It's hard to price those services, so we fund those from taxes. Then you've got your water, sewer, which, talking about service levels, we charge people for that because we can identify them and we can identify their use. So when we're going into the tax policy conversation, we also need to also be thinking about our service fees, user fee cost recovery. And there might be some good arguments to subsidize some things, like maybe we've got a philosophy that we want the best rec services in the province, and we're willing to subsidize those from property taxes. Or maybe we go the opposite end and say, you know, I'm tired of subsidizing Matt Fenske's kids in swim club. Let him pay another $300 per kid per year because they're the ones in the pool. So where your philosophy kind of shakes out, I think, is going to drive a lot of where we get to. If you go into the Municipal Government Act, there's a whole division on taxation, and it talks about all the different options you've got. We had talked earlier about the new opportunity to apply a lower commercial rate to small businesses. So that's an option, kick that around. Do you want to give small businesses with fewer than 50 employees a break? You know, maybe encourage some development. You have the option of exempting machinery and equipment used for processing and manufacturing. We don't do that right now. The City of Brooks and Town of Bassano do. They don't lose a lot of tax dollars doing that. We apply a flat rate for paving tax. The City of Brooks gets a little more complex in how they do their paving tax, but the way they do it, it puts churches and everybody on the hook for that paving tax, so you actually get more of the users funding that. There's some, we've had phone calls from municipalities asking what our community aggregate levy is. We don't have a community aggregate levy, so that would be a levy we could put on gravel operations. They beat up the road, so that's something you could consider. There's a lot of tools available in the tool chest. Depending on the overall philosophy, I think will drive what we end up with. If you look at the other specialized municipalities in the province, so your Strathcona, Mackenzie County, Wood Buffalo, and Lac La Biche, Jasper, Crow's Nest. I didn't look at Jasper because they're in a national park, and I didn't look at Crow's Nest, but you look at their tax rate bylaws, and they're kind of split. So Strathcona and Mackenzie have one municipal rate per assessment category for the entire county. Wood Buffalo, they split into service areas, so an urban service area and a rural. So you might say, all right, City of Brooks and buffer zone is an urban service area. You've got access to a hospital, multiple schools, a Walmart. You pay this rate, and if you're anywhere else, you're rural. Or you can, I shouldn't suggest what Mark suggested back there, but we've got concentric rings going out and different rates, you know, how far away you are from things. I would prefer a really simple tax rate bylaw. So urban, rural, and I think you also have to consider how do we get from here to where you want to be. And if you have that urban-rural split, you can kind of maintain the difference currently, and over time, as those savings materialize, you arrive at the everybody pays the same rate kind of a thing. Just a couple of numbers. Let's pretend we can't find any savings, but we still think that region-wide it makes sense to consolidate governance in our admin structures. 2018, we raised $45 million, more or less, in the region in taxes. For us to all have the same rate across all municipalities and still raise that $45 million, you'd see a residential average rate of 6.37, farmland average rate of 4.7. We're already on the warpath of increasing that over time, so let's forget about farmland. Non-res, you'd look at an average rate of 8.74 in the region. So that would average us all out. I don't think it would be palatable. If I was still living on that acreage outside of Dutchess, I don't want to see my residential taxes double. But just to kind of frame the numbers, what you'd be looking at if we all averaged out and didn't find a lick of savings. Councillor Amulung suggested targeting the savings and bringing down those higher rates down to, let's say we went down to county rates. So we're 3.92 residential rate in 2018. We need to find about $4.7 million in savings on budget-wide to bring everybody in the residential category down to that 3.9. We're not talking about farmland because we only need to find about $4,200 to bring everybody down to our rate there. On the non-res side, we're at 8.23 in 2018. City was at 12.99. Bassano was at 17.23. To bring those two down to our rate, we need to find $1.8 million to target that residential to bring them down to 8.23. So if we can find $6.6 million in savings across everything, we can bring everybody down to that lowest common denominator. Probably won't get 6.6 million straight out of the gate, but over time, maybe you get there. So that's where, if you start with that urban and the rural, you've got the opportunity to maintain the difference, some factors. So maybe rural's lower and the urban is 1 point whatever times that rural rate. And over time, as savings materialize, you bring them down. So one of the scenarios I ran, say we keep our 3.92 residential rate. If the urbans paid 1.75 times that, they'd be paying 6.85 would be their rate. You need to find $1.4 million to bring them down to that. And that's pretty good movement, right? You go from 7.9 in the city down to 6.8, 10 in Bassano down to 6.8. On the res side, if we keep our 8.23 and the urbans pay a factor of 1.25 times that, they'd be paying 10.2, 10.3. So city goes from 12.99 down to 10.29, and Bassano goes from 17.24 down to 10.29. You need to find $1 million to make that happen. So I think when we're talking about finding cost savings, we don't have to find a ton of savings to make some really tangible differences on the tax rate side of things for our partners.
So my first question is, how come my numbers that are in this sheet are different than what he's spouting off?
I went off of the 2018 tax rate bylaw. Kevin may have had more up-to-date numbers from 2019 if you've got something there.
Because I got our county residential rate at 4.4.
Yeah, with the paving half on there.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So the way you're talking this last scenario, everybody gets an advantage except the people in the county. And we still have to find some savings of a couple of $1 million there.
Yeah, so those were just the scenarios because I wanted to get that kind of feedback. I think really to make it palatable, you gotta show that everybody wins somehow. So one of the questions I threw at Kevin the other day was, how do you divide up these cost savings that we find in the different communities, right? So just my high level, if I look at the town of Bassano and I say, all right, we are going to save the cost of your council budget and administration, we can take care of that. So we save you 700,000. Does that 700,000 go to Bassano 100%? Or what's the formula for sprinkling that through? Because that had an effect on the rest of the region, right? Somebody had to pick up that work managing it. So give some thought to how you think it's equitable to share the cost savings that materialize over time, because I think that will be an important part of your plan. Because again, I'm in the city now, so I want to see my tax rate go down to the lowest common denominator. But if I'm Matt Fensky living on that acreage in Dutchess and things are happening, I'd kind of like to see a little piece of the savings as well, right? But how you spread that out gets pretty complicated calculus, I think.
Okay, so thanks, Matt. We've had lots of discussions on this, and as he says, it's very complicated. It's not easy. I'm very optimistic that the region is going to find lots of savings. So I don't think the status quo is even in the conversation. I do agree with the couple 3-year window of keeping existing rates as everything transitions. I think you'll need that regardless. And then tucking that money away for projects that the council today wants to do. So I agree with Matt that a user fee philosophy is what you need to have for water, sewer, garbage, anything that's identifiable. And, those fees need to pay 100% of the services that they receive. So if Bassano needs to do its water and sewer lines, and the money that they save from the new mill rate, they can put that away and do their water and sewer lines. I think that I agree with Brian's comments on the costing of what the services are. So I think the region should put in the costing model the county has, and you cost everything and you know exactly, so that you can adjust your tax policy at some point in time when you know more. You're not going to know that right out of the gate, and it's going to take a number of years to get that in. But I think that there should be a small commercial rate for the small commercials, less than, I would say, 10 employees, something like that. You would charge an annual business license of a couple $100, and you would go off the number of T4s that they file to prove it. And anybody that doesn't do the business license and the online registration doesn't qualify for the reduced rate. I would start the rates at 3.25 for residential and farm. I would think that we'd want to be one of the most competitive tax municipalities in the region under this new structure. I would double the urban rate of that, because there are clearly a benefit to urbans. I live in an urban center. I also pay taxes in the county, but there's a different benefit to both, and I think it's justifiable. So the urbans would pay 6.5 on their residential rate, and my identification of an urban would be anything that is over 1,000. So Bassano, unfortunately, would be an urban. And the reason that I picked that is I don't think if we're going to get down to the hamlet level, I don't think their services are comparable. So I think that's a base point to start with. So the rate that I would have for small commercial would be 6.5. Would be the same as the urban residential rate. And then the non-res rate, I would do 2.5 as a factor on the rural rate. So that would put it at 8.125 right now. Everybody wins. This would put the region at what I believe is one of the most competitive tax models. It's not the most, but it's a lot better than the way it is today. I would fund 25% of recreation from taxes across the board, and through the costing centers, charge anything that's additional to the centers where the facilities are. And that would be handled through a special tax. The user fees for the facilities, in my view, should be recouped to some point, and that everybody would be entitled to a share of the recreation levy. So if Rolling Hills Arena has $50,000 in costs, they would be able to get 25% of that subsidized through the tax, same across the board. I believe that recreation capital should be funded 50-50, 50% from everybody, and 50% from either the users or donations or grants. Programming, there should be a programming budget annually for groups to access, done by application. And I think that model will get the support of the people. And I think if there's a benefit to everybody in the region to start with. When you look at Fort Mac, Wood Buffalo, they're like Matt says, they have an urban and a rural service area. So I'll just give you a couple of their numbers for mill rates. So their rural mill rate for residential and farmland generates $100 on a 100,000 assessment. Their rural industrial rate generates $1,427 on a $100,000 assessment. That's 14 times. The province now has a rural, 5 times is all you can go. Their urban service area rate is double the rural service area rate, basically. Not quite, but very close. And their urban commercial rate is $384 a year on a 100,000 assessment. So it's quite a bit less than the rural rate. So I don't think they're dealing in a different beast up there. I don't think we can. I mean, their rural assessment is $45 billion, and their urban assessment's $15 billion. So 75% of their assessments is out in the rural. Now, Crow's Nest Pass, Matt talked about it, but Crow's Nest runs just a straight rate across the board, 7.4 mils for residential farm. They don't have much of that farm, I don't think, out there. Mountain goats and tracks, maybe. Non-res is 12.75. So, you know, you could run with one rate, but I do think in a tax policy it's going to be fairer to recognize where services are. And this is a starting point. So the interesting thing about mill rates in the province, you know, when I look at municipal districts and counties, the average residential rate or farmland rate, residential rate is 4.12. That's the average. And the average for non-res is 13.38. So that's a 3.2 factor. So when I suggest that we run 2.5 factor, it's less than that. It's more competitive than that. I think it gives business an advantage here over other areas, but there are other areas that have a lot less than a 2.5 factor too. So when you look at the city's average municipal rate is just over 7 mils, and the average city non-res rate is 13.17 mils. So that's a 1.87 factor. But the interesting thing is the average for the non-res is all 13 mils point. Doesn't matter whether it's towns, cities, or counties. So that is the average rate for non-res. The average rate for farm and res is 4.1 in the counties, 7.06 in the cities, and 8.14 in the towns. So you can see with what I'm suggesting, what everybody's talking about, that we would be one of the most competitive regions in the province. We would have we'd have to see some savings in order to get these rates in, because they are lower across the board. But I'm 100% confident that this is going to be doable in year 3. And I think that's something that, to me, if everybody's serious about this and people want, you know, 2 things that they're going to want to make sure they're comfortable with is governance, which we'll be talking about shortly, and the taxation policy. And not everybody's going to be comfortable, but I think that this type of model will give the region the best chance of success for the long term. So that's what I put together.
Well, he read the notes I gave him like word for word, so thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I'll take that back. Yeah, I think I share Kevin's excitement and optimism about the whole regionalization idea. We've had a decade. There hasn't been a lot going on. We have an opportunity to really kind of shake things up and reimagine what it looks like to work together in the region. We've already got an excellent track record of working together. There's so many opportunities. I've sat with Shelley a few times now, and we've been going through people's numbers, and it's really good, I think, how the province has pushed us into longer-term planning, because looking at some of the longer-term plans, well, city has $40,000 in budget long-term for a budget software. Well, we've got that. You can just roll your data in. $1.4 million to expand public workshop. Well, just send your mechanic over here to our 10-bay. Like, there's a lot of these things where when we're in our silos and just thinking about our piece of the pie, and like, let's be honest, if the amalgamation or regionalization thing didn't work, we're probably not going to invite their mechanic to work out of our shop. It just would be too complicated. But if we're all part of the same corporate structure, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? So we just freed up $1.5 million in a 10-year capital plan to do something more meaningful than having more building footprint. I don't think we need any more buildings, right, for what we're doing. So good luck getting her done.
It's heartening to hear from the money guys. Positive. Clarence.
I'm interested in your 25% in recreation. How are you figuring that?
Well, when we surveyed the expenditures, it was running around 10 million of the organizations and the facilities that responded. So they would have access to 2.5 million. User fees, a lot of the facilities aren't recouping probably what they need to, but this is going to encourage them to do that. It'll also recognize those that have the goodwill and sweat equity, or whatever you call it, I think. So it's a starting point. It's doable within the budget, in my view. You may have to increase that if you want to put more subsidy into recreation, but everybody gets a chunk of it. So there may be expenses that weren't reported to us, but that was the number that Morgan had, was $10 million as expenses for everybody that reported.
I'm just thinking, and I just know Div 1. And if right now we pretty well cover operations, if you're going to cut that to 25%, it's all dead. And that won't fly.
So you think that there should be 100% in certain places?
Well, I think you have to look. I don't think we can get 25%. We'll just start charging every volunteer hour at $15 or $20 plus that, and now instead of 100,000 operating, we were at 400, and we'll cut it back, and then we'll do that. We can play that game, but I don't think there's a recognition for that being given. And I don't think Tilly's any different. I don't think any of our smaller hamlets are any different. Some have more than others, but boy, if we...
So you still have the programming money, right? That's not part of the 25%. So the only 25% I'm talking about is the facilities and their budgets, right? So if you're talking about running the gym there, that they need programming money, they can access that. But I don't think, I didn't do it as the taxpayer to fund 100% of rec. You can certainly do that. But if you're going to fund 100% of rec, you're going to need to find 10 million in the budget. And you can, but you're not going to be able to do it with the rates I proposed. Because 10 million is going to be roughly, what did you say, Matt? 20% of what we're pulling in today?
Yeah, across
45.
the region, 2018 was 45 million.
I think the recreation certainly can be a discussion, and it can go from anywhere that you want to subsidize. Yep. Yep.
Didn't involve capital, so.
Well, the capital was a separate. I
Yeah.
suggested 50-50 for capital as a starting point, but it can be anywhere. It's just my suggestions.
Mhm. Other questions or comments? Lots to think about or get a headache over. Should we talk about the political system? How it would look? Do we need more? Do you want questions for Matt or anybody? No? Okay. The other part of this discussion was we talked about 3, for now, elected representation models. So we were going to have a discussion about those as well. Anybody want to lead off? Or there's 11 elected in 2 of them. Different balances.
I just want to start with 2 questions.
You bet.
And like the third option was 10, so I just wondered where the RWG was coming from with 10 councillors. And the second question is, you talk about the bigger area around Bazzano and Brooks. You call them communities. So just maybe expand a bit on what your thoughts were there.
It was just we didn't come up with a boundary of any sort. It was just that how many. It was just another possibility for a the ward system. I think it was more of a county perspective when we got talking about Bazzano, for example, could have a representative that took in the town and a rural area. So based on numbers. Loosely, I think we were looking at numbers. It can't be based on numbers totally because, well, the representation can't because of the city's bigger population, but our wards, I guess, in the outlying rural, we could sort of, we'd have to try and look at numbers, I think, a little. Clarence, is that accurate?
I'm not quite sure what people were talking about when they were talking about squaring off.
Well,
city.
squaring's an odd term, but
I don't know what that meant. I know there was some suggestion that 5 and 10 were kind of like the city, and maybe they should be with the city. And I thought, no, I don't think that's kind of going to work. But that didn't come from me.
no, I think I said, well, as soon as you're doing that, there's your service level differences, right? So I think we tried to figure that we might not do that. But these are all just ideas, suggestions.
We kind of looked at population of the county being 7,500. City of Brooks being 14. The suggestion of Brooks having 4, the county 5, and Bazzano 1, and the mayor, let's call him the mayor of this new region, being elected at large. And that's why it was the 4, that's why it came out to 10. And then we threw in some other considerations. Let's make it 5 and 5 and 1, and elect from within, because there's a real difference of opinion of how we should be electing our lead person amongst the group. So that's a discussion that I think we want to feel how strongly people feel about that, and is there, where's the middle ground? And the other, just 10. Well, 10 was just the one with 4 for Brooks, 5 for County, 1 from Bazzano. I think there's some disadvantages to having the 1 from Bazzano. It's good because right now it works pretty good, because we've only got the 1 smaller municipality. Whether we should be fearful of the fact that when the other 2 come in, they also want one from each. It might work for Dutchess, but then when you look at Rosemary only having 300 people, it just doesn't quite make sense. So. But we're not there, and they're not in the group right now, so we're working with the group we have. And those 3 options, I think we could all live with any of them, and are just trying to get some feedback and see where we want to go with it.
I think the idea of having your Mayor Reeve or whatever elected from within is, in my opinion, I think it's a better way to go, in that your peers are the ones that are working with you, and you have that relationship, I guess, whereas at large, you never know, I guess, who you're going to get, which I guess is democratic, right? Like that's the way it is. But I don't know, I think from what we have here, I think it's successful to go from within, but that's just my opinion.
I would say that the rural feeling around the table is that, because we have experienced that. I also would think from the city's perspective that they would probably think the opposite. Just because I think there's I don't know, I don't know. But I do believe that, that they feel fairly strongly about that. Yeah. Kelly, they're having the same discussion at their table, so Kelly.
And so,
Sorry, Lionel.
sorry, was there somebody ahead of me?
Yeah, Lionel and Wayne. We'll go Lionel, Wayne, Kelly.
I'm not, like, I would take any of these options, to be honest with you. The only thing I wondered a little bit about was having 1 representative from Bazzano, not representing that many people. If Bazzano couldn't be lumped in with a division of the county. Just a fleeting thought. I don't know if it makes any sense or not, but it seems to me that having 11 councillors maybe is too many, especially since Brooks, who has the highest population, has the least representation. Just some
and their
thoughts, that's all.
Their thought process on that was that distance. They accepted that the distance, the spaces between us in the rural, sort of makes it a little bit harder to manage so that was, they felt a fair, just because of the congestion compared to so correct, right? Yeah. That was because we have been, I think they've been fair, very fair about the number of people that they want at the table with their bigger numbers, but they said, well, there's reasons for that. And I don't think they would go to a ward system. No, they wouldn't do the wards. We felt that we would probably want to come up with wards in the county, so what do you guys think? Think so? Wayne?
Only thing I have, that CEO, Chief Elected Officer, I am really not in favor of that at all, because I've seen too many instances where the mayor gets a little power hungry, and with a reeve like you, if we don't like you, you're not here next year. You know, if things happen, and that's just, I'm being facetious
I lay awake
here.
at night worried.
I know, I'm sure you do. But I worry, I would lay and worry about a CEO that gets elected for 4 years, and he's in control. I've seen one right now who seems to have a council under control, so I know. But that bothers me, that part. But as far as awards, I think the city could have the way they like it, and we have ours.
So the question of wards, people think is good to keep wards? I mean, they would change, because we have 10 right now. We would be going down to 5. So, I mean, and we would try to balance out population, obviously, better than it is now. Kelly was next, and then Brian and Anne-Marie.
I was just, yeah, wards are good for me. I like that. I do like the idea of voting the chairperson from within. I think it allows the peers to choose. Otherwise, the chairperson will always be from the city. The
Could be.
urban center very easily could be, right? So, but otherwise, I like all your scenarios. I do have had the experience of Reeves, or not Reeve, a mayor who's gone south, so that's not always fun.
Brian and then Anne-Marie.
Yeah, I mean, I would ultimately support any of the 3 options. My concern about number 1, as expressed by the others, I like the idea of electing within, but more importantly, you might have 2 or 3 of the best people that could possibly be on council running for that position, and ultimately you'd have 2 of them. If you had, let's say, 3 running for a CEO position, and you could have 2, you'd have 2 of them that could be some of your best councillors not be there because of that reason, and I find that would be unfortunate. And take the 3 municipalities that currently are there. If all 3 of you guys, you know, the Reeve and the 2 mayors would run for that position, those are 3 valuable people that you would have on council that you wouldn't have access to. So that's my number 1 argument. It's not about being afraid of having people elected from at large. It's about the quality of people, because ultimately your strength of your organization is going to be the people that sit around that table, and who they put in charge of their organization. Those are the 2 key things. I'm going to throw a little bit, although I'm not suggesting this as far as what we should do, because I understand the logic between having the ward system. I don't necessarily support it personally. I understand that as far as selling this initially, it really is important to do this. People need to feel that they're represented, that they have a contact with somebody. But you might have the best 5 councillors that live within a 10-mile radius of each other, or 5-mile radius of each other, and recognized by that fact within your community. And you're taking that scenario out of the mix. So just a little bit of a caution. I do support the fact that we would have wards, because this early in the game, you're not going to sell it to our, we'll get a lot of pushback from our public if we wouldn't go that way, right? So I do support that, but I don't think you should forget the other part of it. Look at the city. I mean, I know at least two of the councillors that live in Uplands. They're good councillors. You know, John Petrie and Dan Klein, they're both great councillors. Well, they're all good councillors, but they both live in the same community. So based on that, one of them wouldn't be able to sit at council. So anyways, just like I said, I'd support all three. I'm least likely to support number one because of just taking somebody out that probably would be really good around that table.
Anne-Marie?
Although I started questioning option number 3, now I'm starting to think maybe we should have 10, but not one from Bassano, just 5 from the city, 5 from the county. And if the ward system is set up where you kind of look at numbers, Bassano has 1,200, but Lionel in his division has 1,100. So, you know, those are pretty equal numbers. So depending on how you pick the 5 wards in the county and then 5 in the city and then pick from within, I agree with that. I think it works for us.
Wayne?
How does Strathcona County, how does their council, do they have a ward system or just at large?
I don't know. They have wards?
Yeah, I know Strathcona County has wards because when we had that tour, they were identifying the different areas that they came from. So,
And do they have wards throughout the populated area as well as the rural? Like, yeah, it'll be in the.
They got 3 rural and 5 urbans in Strathcona.
And is it ward system in the city as well, or in the urban?
Yeah, they have 5 councillors for that. I'm not sure, but I know that the rural ones have their own wards.
What I'm hearing is that all 3 options are palatable. The choosing the mayor from within, like we said, we have trouble with giving that one up. I don't know. That could be something that's a bit of a tussle, I think, to deal with. And the wards for hearing that the wards for the rural is important. So, any other comments?
Well, I think it's fair to say that from listening to the Bassano's rep, it's not a deal breaker, but I think having a rep from Bassano is pretty important. And we can work with that. I think if I was to guess where this is going, it's going to be 5, 5, and 1. That's just my own guess. And elected from within.
Elected from within?
Right.
I think by the end of our discussion the other day, Bassano only had their mayor, Wixon, there, and he felt, you know, the town of Bassano should have one, right? And that's when we start, you know, I said, Ron, our whole goal with this is about blurring boundaries, not keeping boundaries. So you'd have to make it bigger. And he totally got that, I think, before we left. Has to be that way. Tracy?
Yeah, like I think if we go, like how Anne-Marie was talking about population and separate, you know, like setting your boundaries, Bassano still typically would have, that area would still probably have one because of population.
Yeah, it could.
Very well could. So, like basically we would look at it that they were the county, say, and then our population would go up to 8,700 or whatever, and then you sort your boundaries from there, basically, is sort of in my mind how I think that, because like, well, I mean, like you say, we're setting up a boundary for saying, well, it's got to be from the town of Bazzano. Well, it's not going to be, yes, the town of Bazzano will be there, but we're trying to get this so we're working together, so, I don't know.
Yeah, and yeah. That's where we came up with the Brooks and Bazzano community, sort of like, not just boundaries as such around the urbans. Anything else on that, Kevin?
So I can just add Strathcona has 8 wards, and then their mayor is elected at large. And it doesn't look like their wards are heavily unbalanced, but they're not balanced. I mean, some of them looks like 4,000 votes, and then other ones are 2,500, 2,200. So, I mean, there's probably more people. I don't think everybody votes, but that kind of gives an idea how they do it.
Any other comments to take back to our next meeting? The other communities are doing the same discussion as this, so it'll be interesting to see what comes of it. Wayne?
Will it be difficult to get Bazzano's agreement from the residents or whatever if we go with them not having a rep? Say, or do we just take part of our county and throw it in as part of the Bazzano?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's my concept of it. Because as we're trying to, like I said, trying to blur the boundaries, not have strong boundaries. Because we've blurred the boundaries already. We've been saying that all along. It used to be that we would never put money into the other communities like we have, and we've done that. So the boundaries, yeah, we don't want to try and keep them as they are. Kelly?
I would suggest that you rename it, though. Bazzano community doesn't quite work for, it's not clear. I would begin calling it Ward 6 right away, or whatever you decide. And then they can ask, what does that mean? Or what is that area in Cup?
And traditionally, we have actually done that with numbers.
Yeah,
haven't we?
or A, B, or C, but the longer you go calling it that, it has a connotation to it.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
Just
Yeah. Good point. Good enough discussion, Clarence? Good enough to go back to our group with? Thank you, everybody. We're sort of getting to a few more definite type of decisions. Kinsman Rodeo Breakfast. We would need a motion to share the breakfast costs. Somebody want Lionel make that motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Kinsman Rodeo Breakfast. Let's go to Todd, who's been moved around all day long. We're going to go back to number 9 on our agenda. Number 1 in our hearts, number 9 on our agenda, Todd. There you go.
Well done. It's taken me almost 15 years to get that, Molly. You can retire now. That's all I needed. No, she can't. That's right. That's right.
He's had a bad day. He's been in here about 3 times. Let's get out. Thanks, Todd, for being flexible. Number 9, anyhow. We got lots of things happening, ASB here.
Well, yeah, we're rocking it. 'Tis the season. I have to admit, though, it's fun watching you guys try to talk openly about that regionalization conversation, because it's so hard to not say things like the town of Pisano or the city of Brooks or the county of Newell, because we all know that you don't mean that. But at the same time, it's hard to explain it all. It was very interesting watching all the confused faces.
Well, there's so many people. I was thinking about this with the signs, our team bandits, our town, or what are the little signs that they refer to town anyhow, not the city. So it hit me as people don't know what we are. You know, it's still the town of Tilly to many, and yeah.
I love it.
It's totally blurred, really.
My comment on how many counselors are we going to need? How much work is there going to be? Is there going to be too much work for 10 people? I don't know that. And
we
the other
hardly
thing,
do anything.
I know that, but I'm not allowed to say that on the YouTube.
I can.
Just joking.
You see, the committees will change. See, most of the work is committees, right? So if we did all that work around the table at a meeting.
I'm just scared to have to convince more people how awesome I am. And that takes time. It took 15 years for Molly, of all people. All right, sorry, I won't waste any more of your time. That was just fun for me watching. Which one do we want to do first? We want to do a quick update?
Sure.
Maybe take away from the painful Todd? We have had a wonderful first week. Seasonal staff have started now, except for 2. Emerson opens next week. Yes, right? Everybody's coming down there this weekend for supper tomorrow, or for Saturday, pardon me. We worked with Municipal Services to buy a Killifer this spring, something we've never owned in my tenure here anyways. We're doing back alleys, we're doing baseball diamonds, getting rid of gopher holes. It's been phenomenal. Patricia and Howard, I think, got that thing down to a science. So we're going to be starting to work on Township Road 17-4 here right away, Killifering that every couple days for Todd to drive back and forth to town, because Terry refuses to grade that one. We did some work down Rolling Hills. We removed an old chain link fence at an old building that wasn't used anymore. Not a big structure, like a shed. With irrigation startup and repairs, I'm not sure if you guys are able to hear anything out there, but there's probably some swearing because they're digging lots of holes. Playground equipment, we actually had a third-party guy come in and do a playground inspection on the structures, and we do it once a month, but we obviously don't know all of the rules perfectly, so we get one guy to come in once a year, and it was awesome. He noted some things that we didn't, and some things that we really should have, so it was good. Drill rentals now obviously going like crazy. Strychnine is slowing down, but we expect it to pick up again as guys go out to check for spraying, and they realize that there's a couple acres missing. Not the best timing, but we understand that sometimes doesn't work out. And we just had a guy by the name of Kelly Cooley, if anybody remembers. He's our South Region Weed Coordinator, our Southern Alberta Weed Coordinator. So he just came in and worked with Cypress County Special Areas and us, our weed inspectors, kind of teach them a little bit more about weed ID and what it means to be a weed inspector and how to have difficult conversations. And then we have our big weed inspector training that's coming up on June the 5th. We're hosting it in Rainier. So we're hoping to have about 100 people there from kind of southern Alberta, central Alberta, come down to Rainier and enjoy the day. So we've already got, I think, 30 people registered, and we just opened it up last week. So it's been good. We've been doing hosting for about the last 5 years, and we kind of move it around County of Newell, and it works great. That's about all I got for you. I prompted you. I sent you that email. No, I'm just joking. All right. So, Mark brought this one the first time to you. We're on the house property, right? Yes. So the truck route property was purchased, obviously, for the truck route. We had somebody in there. The the tenant decided to move out. Mark brought it to council. You guys said remove the house and garage from the property so we can move on. We kind of looked at our options. The options to move it ourselves are not great, so we offered it for sale to be moved. So I think I outlined here in the open houses, we had 6 people come. Out of those, I would say 4 people would have been actively engaged in probably doing it. but only one submitted a bid. So I guess it's now it's time to determine if that's the market price for that property. I'll give you maybe a couple numbers that I kind of came up with that I didn't write down, but on the tax for the old property, for the truck route property when it was a property, the house was valued at $145,000. The house and garage. So that's completely set up, water, power, gas, everything's there, the cement is laid. So I kind of worked it back if you kind of had to do all that stuff again, and it certainly is, you wouldn't be able to pay what the assessed value is set up to do that again. So if you start taking things off like, upwards of $30,000 to move the building, $7,500 for a gas contract, $5,000 to set up power, and some of these are because I know where this person might be moving it to. $10,000 for sewer, $10,000 for water. If they're lucky and the water goes right by, I know this could be $35,000. Then when you start talking about concrete setup, and then the inside of the structure is in livable shape, but I would want to, redo some flooring and paint and those kinds of things as anybody would moving into a structure. So it certainly gets it a lot closer to where Colin put his number at.
What you're saying is it's not below the assessed value.
Well, it would be under the assessed value that it is on that site that it's sitting on. Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
But I think when you open something up for tender the way we did, and we allowed lots of time and pushed it, it kind of lends you to where the market actually is.
Mm-hmm. Questions for Todd? Kelly?
I just wanted to share with you all, because it's the last name, there is no, I don't know this person, so just make sure that you know that. He may be related, but I don't know that for a fact either.
Oh, sure.
I do not want to leave the room.
Lionel.
Well, speaking from experience, we've tried to move a house before and had a very difficult time getting anybody to bite on it. It did eventually move. Sold it for $25,000, but it was quite a good house. Like, it was a more modern type house with 2x6 walls and whatnot. It was, quite acceptable. And we got $25,000 for it, but had a hard time finding somebody to move it.
To move it.
Yeah.
In addition.
Or anybody to take it. That was my point.
Gotcha. Yeah. Brian, I think you.
I was going to make the motion, but you have to make a correction. You have 204 in the mobile home in the actual motion, and it's 2094, or it's right, 1994, I think. Well, I knew I was going to get you on something. I didn't ask you any questions, so
That's that's why I didn't ask.
So, as written, except maybe you should put in front of Colin. No, Kelly's
relative.
cousin Colin. No, I'm just kidding.
That's good. Okay, somebody else had their, Anne Marie.
I was also going to make the motion and say that my neighbor just gave his house away.
To get rid of it.
Yeah, to get rid of it. Yeah.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the sale as outlined in the offer to purchase. Kelly.
The question, do we know where it's going? Is it in my backyard?
I thought you didn't know Colin. I don't know for sure. I guess that's up for discussion with Colin and Shanley. But from my discussions, Colin is a Div 2 resident, I believe. Do you know Colin? Yep. And they're moving it south on the Lake Road kind of across, I believe, on the east side of the highway, south, like let's say 3 miles south of the city of Brooks, on the east side of the road. That sound about right? He just mentioned a big rock, and I know when I drive down there, there's a few big rocks, but they own some land down there.
Looks like a sign?
A big rock. That's what the conversation we had, honestly. So I believe that Dick owns some land, and then Danny Chrisman owns some land further south, and that's kind of where it's at. So maybe a little bit farther than what's the development that we've been working with, the head case?
Redelbach.
Yeah, Redelbach, sorry. So a little bit farther south than that on the east side of the road. So, going to be another county ratepayer resident, right?
Okay.
Awesome.
All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, item 3. Appointment of maintenance supervisor.
Yeah, so the way I see it, the more people we have that can work with our producers for weeds and pests, the better. We thought Joe kind of would fit that role as he's out doing his other tasks. He can be working with landowners as well. So we thought we would appoint Joe as a inspector.
So move.
Clarence makes that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. That's it.
I think that's all I have. Are you going to move to Mark on the road tour thing?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Because I got some really good ideas about that.
Okay, let's go right to that then. Really mess up this agenda. 11.3. I thought, my goodness, these guys should be in the tourism business rather than I was amazed at the long, long list of stuff.
Maybe we feel we're in the circus business someday.
It was a long list, anyhow.
We got the big tent, right?
Along the way.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, road tours. I don't know. I think the 10 of you have some of your own conclusions about how beneficial road tours are. Really, my 10 years here, I believe road tours have evolved drastically. They have moved away, and even slightly before my time, I think they moved away from being those tours where projects were identified by councillors for staff to go back to put into budget to work on things, and legislative requirements and stuff, and long-term planning, and moving on stuff even before it was legislated to have long-term plans and stuff. And then we look back at the progress that we've made on everything, and it's more of a showcase of what we've accomplished, things that we have going on. We're not finding big things out there anymore that we have to tackle that take a lot of money to do things with. We still have big partnerships and projects like that and stuff going on, but those are all part of a big plan as well, right? We find a few small things from each of you every year and stuff, and some things do take a couple of years to get them into the mix based on other things that have been planned and carried out and whatnot. But is it time to change what we do? Because personally, and not pointing out anybody on their own or anything, but some people have said, is this even necessary? It definitely gets me out of the office. I don't get out of the office enough to go and see everything, and I certainly don't drive 1,500 kilometers of our road every year to see every teeny tiny little bit. That's what operations staff are for and why they're out there, to communicate things back in. So laid out some options. There's definitely a multitude more of options out there that maybe council members have an idea of, but we went from, it's kind of been a municipal services thing, to consulting with Todd, that maybe he may have a role or something else that we can mold this thing into. He's definitely good with the talk and stuff and keeping everybody entertained on things like this, rather than driving around with boring old Mark Harbeck pointing out things and whatnot. But that's right, wild animals. We still have to have the first deer of the day and stuff like that, but we're going to have to come up with prizes or something, I don't know. So really interested for where council thinks they would like to go with this. If it's something that we continue as per past practice, if we abandon it altogether due to plans that we have in place, if we go to as per council request only, or if we would all like to try to get together on our fantastic bus and put it over a 2-day period or whatever kind of period council feels beneficial and go see some things together and build a better understanding with ourselves and not on individual basis, silos of respective areas and stuff, but together.
Questions? I have one. If we did, whatever we did, do we have to do it in July or August?
No.
Like, I just find the summer is so precious. And it's just, the days go so fast. I'm not suggesting December or anything, but September maybe? I don't know.
Just remember, we're working on budget in September.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So if there are things you point out, count on it being 12 months. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
okay.
We'd
No,
fit
it
what
was-
we
it was
could.
just when I
We could do it earlier in the year. We could be doing it around this period if that's what council's preference is, right? You'll probably see the roads in the worst shape you can possibly see them in at this time of the year.
Yeah. Okay,
Which-
other questions? Brian?
Two comments. One, I think it's a good idea because it's all, we always do road tours on our own dime anyways. I think it's a great way to see. I'm just curious how you're going to get it all done in 2 days, but I'd like to throw out
limited.
that, pardon me?
It would have to be limited.
Yeah. Well, I think we'd each have to go through and maybe make a check mark beside something that you wouldn't necessarily have interest in seeing, or mark the top, 10 things per day or whatever, and I don't know. But in the spirit of regionalization, why don't we invite our partners that are at the table? If we truly believe in this and this is the direction we're going to go, maybe they need to see some of the stuff that if they were around this table and whenever that happens, get an understanding of our area. The one thing that I was looking forward to seeing that I haven't seen for many years is the Antelope Creek siphons. They're pretty cool.
The what, Brian?
Antelope Creek siphons.
Oh.
They're not in use anymore, but they're still there. Or see some semblance of them is still there, I think. So, anyways, those are the only two things that I had.
Other responses? Ideas? Lionel?
Kind of a silly one. Brian, if we're going to invite more people to see where the asparagus is in the ditches, we're in big trouble here. Off the list.
I thought you just put that on for Norm Berg. He's a fanatic.
Oh, Molly, your division is not the only division.
No, but he's a fanatic about
That's right.
about it.
Yeah, don't take that list as the list. That is a combination of, I sent the email to Todd and that's the response I got back. He already had it all planned. I'm like, ooh, good. Anything, like, that's fine. We can send out whatever and still ask, where else do you recommend or something? Because I don't know what each of you would like to highlight in your areas or what you want to see in somebody else's. Last number of years, we tried to get every one of you out to see Tilly when it was under complete reconstruction, right? And we've tried to get out to the paved highways and stuff. And oftentimes, for Molly, that's a 45-minute drive out of Gem to get to Tilly. But we did it because we thought it was valuable. And we didn't have a lot going on in the Gem area for major projects and stuff. We'd already finished a bunch of paving. So these are just things, right? We want to talk about economic development and moving of commodities. The Hayes single lane bridge. We talk about Fisher Bridge being an issue in Bazzano, but one leaving our division is the Hayes crossing because it is still the steel truss crossing overhead and everything with limited height restriction stuff. These are just things.
Yeah.
So a list.
So is everybody, maybe we should do some elimination. Is everybody fine with not having a road tour in their division as such. You ready for a change? Everybody looks like they're saying yes. So do you then want to do a 2-day thing where we do bus tours, or you want to just do what we've been doing in a different division for yourself, or like what are you thinking? So we can give these guys some ideas. Anne-Marie.
I like the road tours as a bus and going into a different area. We've done it once before, and it was, I tour around quite a bit, but we went onto roads that I had never been on, and I thought it was good.
It takes longer than you think, though, doesn't it? Like that's the way road tours used to be. And we didn't get, it was a day, wasn't it? And we didn't get very far. We didn't complete what we started out to, I don't think. Yeah, a lot of listening to Wayne. The old Wayne. The other Wayne. Wayne.
Maybe we could split it up, say do one in the spring, one in the fall. 'Cause, putting 2 days together, and if we go with Brian's idea of trying to get some other municipal representatives to come with us, that could make it really difficult 2 days in a row. So
Yeah, we could do that too.
and I like Brian's idea about inviting them along, because if we're going to do something with regionalization, they should get out and see what our County of Newell is about.
Yep.
Don't forget, we should probably go and see what they have too.
So I was just gonna say, is that something that you would like to take back to joint services to have more discussion about and then bring back?
Let's lead it. Let's just do the first one and see what the response is. And if they say, well, we got stuff we want to show you too,
We just go to the regionalization group.
there you go.
Anyhow, we can, yeah. No, but I think we should lead, you're right.
Well, I think that's what, when me and Mark started talking a little bit, we thought about we hear about maybe a complaint, and then we hear about why there's that, or why that happened. So, last year we had the dust concerns in Rolling Hills, right? Those were a huge complaint.
Yeah.
But why can't we go and visit that, in that area, the producer that's creating that complaint, and understand his business, so we know how to solve those problems in the future, whether it's with our infrastructure or their practices. We can help create a solution, right? So those are the kinds of things that you can see on the list. Some of the commercial type areas, some of the bigger producers, some of the whatevers. But we thought that might be a great way to maybe get them to converse with us back to them, and create some positive images too. So.
And I think rather than trying to cover a lot of miles, if there's, a smaller area of good things to see, that it might be good to, I don't think we should feel like we all have to get to every division or anything that doesn't make sense either. We've got more years to come. So how do you want to leave this, guys? A day? Oh, Clarence, go ahead.
Two excellent people sitting at the table. Give us a day tour. One day. Some of the things you'd like to show. And just go either north or south. Don't try to cover too much. Because there's lots of stuff all over. So.
Yeah.
And make it for September. Before it gets cold.
Yeah, I think start with a day. If we like it, we can do another day.
Well, we've got to have something for next year.
Yeah, or even next spring.
Well, we can take those notes as we go, right?
Yeah.
As people think, as they see things, this is something I'd like to see on the next one or whatever. So, no, we can put it together and put it back out. We can take it as direction. We don't need a motion on this at all. But
sounds great.
Other comments?
Thank you, you guys, for your creativity. Tracy?
I was just wondering, going back to Mark's comment about if we do it in September, is that too late for budget items? If we see that's fine, or Okay, just as
We
long
could
as
make
it's
budget
good.
adjustments all the way till April,
True.
especially if they come from that side of the table.
I've been told that I'm supposed to slap whoever says budget adjustment because it's additional funding expenditure, right?
Perfect. Thanks, gentlemen. Okay, I think we've got page 1 all done. Page 2, we are at checks for payment, item 10.7. Oh, sorry, payment register, 10.8. Questions about that or a motion to accept the payment register? Lionel moves. All in favor? Opposed? Request for function of council. Emergency Readiness Committee or whatever we're called. There is a session on May 24th, Friday, from 10 to 3, emergency management course. So I think if you're on that committee that, I don't think we need a motion of council, but it's a reminder that who is on that committee? Hubie and Tracy and me, just the 3 of us. So let Keith know. I think everybody got that, didn't you? Let Keith know if we're going, and that'll be good for that. Anything else? Oh, Tracy, sorry.
Just had a question. Ariana, did you want us to, with the pancake breakfast, was that part of your discussion today? You wanted to know who all could come? I thought I kind of read it in your thing.
Yeah,
or
that
just
would
email you,
be
or?
a good idea. You can just email me if you're available to help out at the pancake breakfast, or tell me now.
I'm going to be away, I think. I've got Brian lined up to work hard for me that weekend. Looks like you guys all going? Okay, I am not, I don't think. You can buy them through the year. They're for anything else? Okay, function, information, media release. Oh, do we? Where's that? Oh, thank you. Do you know what? We did that this morning. Anne Marie did that after Cole and Mark did theirs, yeah. I think this morning, yeah. No worries. Anything else? I think we're at the end of the meeting. We've got all our in-camera done. So if that's the case, oh, Clarence.
Just a quick, some of you have already bought tickets for the Halo Rescue fundraiser, but just to let you know what it is. Next Wednesday, Halo's going to be landing their helicopter at the Rolling Hills School at 11 o'clock. You're certainly all invited, and anyone who wants to buy a ticket for a balloon ride or a fancy quilt, I still got some tickets here. They're worth 1 for $5 or 3 for $10. Okay. Oh, it's balloon ride. Okay. This is my wife's doing.
You got blue and green.
Yeah, the Halo, hot air balloon is $10 each and 3 for $25. And the quilt is $5 each or 3 for $10.
So Clarence, at Rolling Hills School at 11?
Rolling Hills School, and there's also a $5 lunch at the hall afterwards, and all proceeds go to Halo. No, it's on.
Wednesday, the 15th.
15th, Wednesday.
So Clarence, do those guys, Halo obviously serves your community sometimes.
I don't know of any time that they have been to Rolling Mills, but I could be wrong. But,
Okay.
they are definitely closer, if ever we did need it there, than Stars.
All right. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll adjourn at 3:50. 3:50? Is it